could he
possibly make
such a wonderful
Pork roast!
Well, I can tell ya, this here is actually a potato. I wrapped it with some thick cut bacon I had for tomorrow's breakfast. It's what I call a pseudo pork roast.
So what you just saw is basically an introduction of Shokugeki. And when we saw it for the first time, I think we were pretty flabbergasted. It just was really kind of out of nowhere, and I think that's what really dragged us in.
Yeah, it floored us.
Watching all of that stuff and going through the entire series kind of really resonated with us. Really all the different types of culinary techniques that people were using, and since we're completely amateurs, it looked really cool to try out ourselves. So we're gonna do the first dish from the episode that you just saw, and we're gonna be doing the gotcha pork.
And the gotcha pork roast is something that I'm hoping is going to be relatively easy. It doesn't seem like it's that technical, just because at the time, as you saw, Yukihira had to use what he had on hand. Potatoes, mushrooms, bacon, and some other very basic ingredients. And we are gonna try to throw those together, and hopefully the combination of the starch and the mushrooms will give it a very meat-like texture, while all of the grease and tastiness from the bacon seeps through the rest of the way.
All right, well, let's get started.
Let's go.
So for the first part of this recipe for the gotcha pork, we're gonna need to focus on the potatoes. And to hold the potatoes, we're gonna be using a large pot. In order to boil potatoes, you of course need water. So we have water here already set aside in a smaller pot. And then generally when you boil potatoes, you're gonna set it up to a high heat. But in this case, we're gonna be using a steam basket, which opens up and holds all the potatoes in. So let's do that.
And for our potatoes today, we are going to be cutting them in equal sized chunks, about 2 to 3 for each of these medium to large size Goldens, so that they all cook evenly at the same time. That done, should look about like that. And we will just pile these guys right into our steamer basket. And there we go. That. Put lid on. Turn to medium-high heat until you start to see some steam develop. Then lower the temperature and let them go until they are fork soft. So one of the other things that is going to be going inside of your gotcha pork roast is going to be half an onion finely chopped. So we're going to get that taken care of really quick. Make one small cut. In. A little bit lower. Things fall apart, it's all right.
So for the next part of your gotcha roast, you're gonna need 2 oyster mushrooms, also known as king trumpet, and you're gonna need to finely mince them. Well, to save time, we have a food processor. So simply take your mushroom, split it in half. Look how wonderfully white these are. And they should be able to fit in the food processor now. And at the end, you should get something like this.
One of the last things we're going to need to prep for our gotcha pork roast is going to be our garlic. It says 2 cloves. I always go a little over and go 3. So get them out of their paper.
As for cutting and processing the garlic, we take off the ends near the bulb. This is totally an optional step, but it's just something I have always known to do.
And there we go. All right, our potatoes are done. So what we're going to do is we're going to take off the top, remove all of them, and let them sit on our cutting board for about 5 minutes to cool off a little bit. And then we're going to remove the skins off of them.
For the next part of the gotcha pork, you're gonna wanna use a potato masher and then mash your finely peeled potatoes and make sure they're a frothy mash. And try to make sure those guys don't escape, like they're doing now. If it gets a little messy, totally fine. If it's lumpy, don't worry about it. All right, it's perfect. All set and done. Man, that was hard.
All right, next steps. We are going to cook our onion and mushroom so that they can be combined with our freshly mashed potatoes. We're gonna do that. using our burner, 2 tablespoons of butter, and our saucepan. We're at about medium heat. You want to get that butter in just as soon as you can so it starts melting. We're going to want to go until this butter is completely melted in the bottom of the pan and just starting to kind of bubble and froth a little bit. Next up, we're going to add our onions in before that butter starts to brown, as well as the mushroom. And this will go for about 3 to 4 minutes or until lightly browned. Alright, and as you start to see some of that browning taking place and the onions are becoming a little translucent and tender, you're going to want to go ahead and add in the garlic that you chopped earlier. Stir that around and let it keep cooking for another 3 to 4 minutes until the entire mixture is nice and browned. Now we have everything here. Got a big bowl that we're going to mix everything together in, our mashed potatoes, our onion and mushroom mixture, and just a little bit of salt. First, get our potatoes into our secondary bowl. Perfect. Still quite hot onion and mushroom mixture. We'll go in there as well. And last but not least, a little bit of salt. Now we're gonna start kneading, and we're gonna be able to do this for about 4 to 5 minutes. Now that we have our potato mixture nicely kneaded over here, we're going to lay a sheet of plastic wrap out on our table, nice and big so it can contain the whole of this football-sized hunk of what will be fake roast. Now that that's wrapped up, nice and tight, we're gonna stick that in the fridge for about 15 to 20 minutes so it gets nice and firm. All right, and while your potato loaf is cooling in the fridge, you can get 2 sheets of plastic wrap and kind of lay them real close to each other so they're overlapping and they give you a big work area. And grab your bacon, which is kind of the most important ingredient in this. It's what makes that a pork roast. And we're going to shingle down until they make sort of a large-sized cross. I'm going to leave these 2 last strips off to the side, just in case this doesn't entirely cover our roast.
In this next part, you're gonna take your potato child out from the fridge and you're gonna place it right down on the side and get ready. Make sure that you have your bacon in order, which it seems like it hasn't moved, so it seems like it's all right. So you're gonna unwrap your potato child, place it in the middle. And what we're gonna do is gonna wrap the bacon around it. Now, if your bacon is not long enough, like so, you might have to go back, reform your potato baby, and make sure it's an appropriate size of bacon. This goes to show you, everybody can make a gotcha pork, and not everybody can make it perfectly. So what we might do instead, might take these extra pieces, place it here. Oh, it's not so bad. Now, you want to make sure that if your entire gotcha roast is completely wrapped in bacon, you're gonna fold it again. Make sure you kind of stretch it a little bit just so that it's nice and compact. If it's not perfect, it's totally fine. You're gonna be putting it in the freezer for about 10 minutes. Now that you've gone ahead and taken your gotcha pork out of the freezer, look about like this. It should be able to hold a little bit better. You're gonna go ahead and take it out of the plastic wrap, and you're gonna place it onto your butcher's twine, which has already been laid out. About 3 to 4 twines this way, and then 1 horizontally, and you wanna make sure that you have your rosemary all set and ready to go. All right, so for this part, you're gonna wanna go ahead and do a butcher's knot. We didn't look it up, but if you know how to do a butcher's knot, go right ahead. We're just gonna gently tie knots to kind of help with keeping everything in place. And as we wait, we're gonna make sure that our oven is at 400 degrees. But because we have all this excess twine, you wanna make sure you kind of cut some of it off. We're gonna take this rosemary and make sure we nestle it in there so it permeates the roast. I would say about 4 to 6 sprigs. And as soon as you've got this, you're gonna go ahead and put it in the oven at 400 degrees for about 30 to 40 minutes. But you wanna make sure that your bacon is nice and golden brown.
And the last step for our gotcha pork roast is of course to make the red wine reduction sauce that we have. So to do that, we're gonna start out with a high-sided, relatively large skillet, about medium-high. And then we are just going to simply add our red wine, sake, and a touch of soy sauce. And we are going to wait for these to come up to a simmer and let them sit there on low heat for about 4 to 5 minutes until it's reduced by about half. As you can see, we have been reducing really nicely. It's starting to get a little bit thicker where I'm dragging, and I can see a little bit of the bottom of the pan in a trail behind my spatula, which means it's about time for our last 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm just gonna start incorporating those in, always moving, keep things rolling in here. All right, and now it is actually time for the pork roast. Vince? What's that look for? What happened?
Well,
Oh,
it's done! But as you can kind of see, one side looks really good. The other side,
had a little blowout.
yeah, looks like its butt is exposed. But you know what? That's how you learn. As soon as you take the roast out, you're gonna have your strings there. Make sure you go ahead and cut them off. And if it worked out all right, the bacon should still stay on. So luckily, it seems
Like we did a pretty decent job.
we did a pretty decent job for our first time. So if you watch other YouTube videos where people go ahead and try to do this themselves, you'll notice that like it's super perfect and amazing. Well, guess what? Like we said before, this is an entire journey. We're not perfect. We're not trained chefs. And you know what? It's actually kind of funny that we're not, because man, look at this golden brown potato. You wouldn't have gotten that if it was completely wrapped. It also goes to show you that we don't have training like Yukihara and his world-class chef of a father.
Look at that. But of course, we aren't done because, as we know, and as we have seen me making here, there was a red wine reduction sauce that went over top of the pork roast. And so, very gently, that looks like gore.
To make the gore look even better, you want to make sure you get some watercress, the end, right here to make it look fantastic. This looks like a bloody organ.
I mean, it's about the size of one too. Here we have the first dish that we see made by Yukihira in the show Food Wars, the gotcha pork roast.
Gotcha, it's not good. We're terrible at it.
You thought this was a cooking show?
Yeah, this is not a cooking show. We're trying, but I think it's kind of actually funny that we kind of just went in head first, and a lot of this stuff is gonna be like that. So I mean, you're gonna get to see all the raw footage of just what it's like to try to do stuff that you see on TV.
Made a valiant attempt, and it's something where if we ever were to do this again, I already know a couple places where I would do things differently, a couple things I could improve on, and that would be kind of, I guess, the secret to it, is that this is the first time we've done this. The more we do it, the better we get.
Yeah, so that's the hope anyway.
Yeah.
We're gonna go ahead and dig into this. We'll kind of just give our first impressions of it. I mean, it still looks good. So you want to dig in?
Let's do it.
Okay, ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
So,
A little bit of everything. There's the bacon, the potato, I saw some mushroom in there.
yeah. Congrats to our first dish.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh wow.
We have it honestly though.
Oh my god, that's actually really good. The saltiness of the bacon is really does seep into the potato, and I didn't really expect it. But it kind of hits you at like the beginning. Mm-hmm. And then
It sort of just keeps mellowing out throughout the whole
yeah, it
thing.
does mellow out at the end.
But it stays consistent too. It's an interesting taste. And the fact that we're both going in for seconds ought to tell you something that you should probably try this yourself.
the red sauce is just really good.
There's a richness there that it needed that's not salty.
I think if we kind of did this maybe a couple more times, we can make it look really good.
Yeah, I'm sure we could. We got better bacon, if we got portioning sizes right on the potatoes.
Thanks again so much for coming on by and watching our Food Wars or Shokugeki no Soma adventure challenge. Any last words?
Thank you for watching. Make this at home.
Yeah!
Honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Make it
Really
at home.
do. Don't make it often, because this is terrible for you. But it's good.
So just before we go, I do want to thank Walking Dog Records for the free lo-fi that they're putting out so that any YouTube content creator can go ahead and use that music. The link in the description is going to be down below, so if you're interested in having lo-fi music that you heard in this scene or any of their 5 albums, you can go ahead and take a look at that right now. Don't forget to go ahead and check out our Instagram and our Twitter, and if you want to tip us for this wonderful creation, go ahead, press like, sub-scramble to the red button, and then as always, you know, what's that last thing that they make us do?
That would be to, if you really want to know when the next dish is coming out and ready to go on the pass, hit the bell.
So guys, once again, I'm Vince,
I'm Taylor.
and we're the chefs of anime.
Thank you.